All right, so today on the Drive channel, I'm going to do something that's a little bit different. There's going to be a little less wrenchy, a little less drivey, and a bit more talky. So I wanted to go over what it costs to convert my 355 from a F1 flappy paddle to a fully functioning 6-speed manual gearbox, although it's, to be fair, it's the same gearbox. The gearbox does not have to be swapped out. That's one of the reasons why I chose to do this work. The other reason I chose to do this work is that when I bought the car, the reason I was able to get such a good price on it is because it was not shifting. The actuator was leaking, and as it turns out, I found out later that the pump was also not working. It turns out that I would have had to spend more money to just get the F1 working than it did to convert the car to a manual, which I wanted anyway, which everybody wants, at least you should want it. And so I'm going to go over what is involved in the conversion, and I'll also go over what the prices were, because that's what everybody always wants to know, is like, how much does this cost? How much does it cost? Well, I'm going to tell you today. So there are 3 workflows with the car, obviously. You just got to think about these 3 things. So you got to add a third pedal. You have to put in all of the shifting mechanisms right from the shift ball, from the shift knob, all the way back to the transmission. And the third thing is that there's some other little electronic things that you have to do, switch out gauges, all of those kind of things. All of the money on the conversion has been spent already, but not everything has been done. So for instance, I put the dual gauges in the gauge cluster, but they're not working yet because it turns out it's not a plug-and-play situation. So one of the projects I'm going to have going forward, figuring out how to wire that up and take out the oil pressure from the center console and replace that with an oil temperature. As I mentioned last in my wrap-up video, I spent $14,000 last year on the car, but that was not $14,000 to do the conversion. I also fixed things that the car needed, things like vents, CV boots, things that the car just needed. I also did a major service on the car, so I redid the tensioners and the belts for the cam belts. So I did a major cam belt service on the car as well. Plus I changed the oil filter, all that fun stuff. Today is just going to be about what it costs to do just the conversion side of things. And I did separate that when I did the budget. So I did manage to separate those prices pretty well. So the first thing that I bought is a shift box. So I bought the shift box from a dealer, a guy who is out in California. He has a 355. He's had 355s, Lamborghinis in the past. He's not like a Euro Spares or a Ricambi or anything like that. Just a guy who deals parts occasionally. And so that was $877 for the shift box. This, by the way, is going to be roughly in order of what I bought, although it doesn't really matter because I kind of just collected all of the parts over the winter and then started work in the summer. So yeah, $877 for the shift box. I found him on eBay. Now he's now a friend of mine, so one of the nice things about having a Ferrari and working on them is that you meet nice, interesting people. Second thing, I bought a pedal box. So $419 for a pedal box. This was actually another eBay buy from a guy in Germany. It's the pedal box from a 348, which does not work on a 355, but what I needed was the pedals. So as I mentioned in my pedal box conversion video, the 98 and 99 cars have Bosch ABS. So you can use the old pedal box, but what you need are pedals. The factory 355 Bosch ABS pedals, brake and clutch pedal, are virtually non-existent. You cannot find them anywhere. But what you can do is you can convert ones from a 348. And so I had a whole video where I did that. Also, that actually came with the master cylinder for the clutch too. So it was more than just the box. It was actually the box plus the master cylinder. Not a bad price for that. So the third thing on the list is a big order from Euro Spares, and I still have the paperwork from that. And so I'll show you a zoomed in version of it. But there are, oh gosh, I think there's something like 55 or 60 items on this list. And I'm not going to read the entire list, but I'll give you an idea of what they are. So looking at nut for the pedal, plate, adjuster lock nut, snap ring, washer, screws, nuts, another threaded nut, a reverse light switch, that's a significant thing, $114. Nylon hex nut, washers. As I mentioned, every single nut and bolt is from Ferrari. Not too expensive. These are prices like 47 cents, $7.98. Ball joint seat, clamp, stud, two-way unions, silent block, a lot of silent blocks. Some of these things I crossed out because I bought them with the pedal box. That order was $2,835. So $2,835 for nuts and bolts and fasteners and pipes and hoses and all that good stuff that you need. So that was probably the biggest single purchase in the process of doing the conversion. Okay, after that, this was a order from a place called ProSport in the UK. It's much, much smaller outfit than Eurospares, obviously. They happen to have the shift rod, a couple of the silent blocks on the shift rod. What else did they have? I think that was about it, actually. So that was an order for $615, but that was the big long shift rod, just a big old piece of metal, but very, very expensive because, you know, of what it is. Yeah, $615 for that. Found a factory shift knob, brand new on eBay, because I did shop around a bit on that. They're not that hard to find. 136 bucks. So they're usually more than that, but it was brand new, factory part, not aftermarket. 136. Every once in a while, you'll find somebody on eBay who's just desperate to get rid of parts. I have parts that I'm desperate to get rid of, like the little F1 shifter that I'm desperate to sell, and you know I would probably take like 500 bucks for it, honestly, because I have no use for it. Okay, so then I had to 3D print a couple of things. There's a piece in the shift box, which is part number 159427, and also part number 154745. No one makes those anymore. So it's a ball and there's a cup that goes around that in the shifter. Those I actually had to have 3D printed because they do not exist anymore. Luckily, on Ferrari Chat, they actually had the drawings. So all I had to do was take it to a company called in the United States called Xometry. And they printed a bunch of the plastic cups and one of the balls, and let's see, that was not too expensive. That was $399. So that's actually the only thing that I have in the car that's not a factory Ferrari part, because you can't buy it. So the cup and the ball, $399 with a 3D printer. I have some extra cups if anybody needs them. 154741. I got like 3 of those. Okay, moving on. Hill Engineering, I bought some stuff from Hill Engineering, which I cannot, for the life of me, remember what the heck they were. 185 bucks for that. No clue what that was. What could Hill Engineering possibly have sold me? I don't know. So that was 189 bucks. May have been tools, actually. Bought a MIG welder. Now this is really a tool. It's not required, but as I mentioned, I had to weld the clutch pedal, so didn't know how to weld, but taught myself, and I had to buy a MIG welder in order to accomplish that, and that was that was $350 for the MIG welder. So you could decide for yourself whether or not I should put that in the list, but that's what I had to do. I had to buy that thing. By the way, I've used it to fix other things around the house, like my lawnmower. Since then, dual gauge. This was an expensive one. The dual gauge that replaces the shift indicator in the center console. Replaced it with the dual gauge, which is the water temperature and oil pressure. That was $1,000. May have even been €1,000. I can't remember, but let's just figure about $1,000. Had a second Eurospares order that had some other odds and ends that I didn't get on the first order. So Second Euro spares order, not sure what was in that one. Just more nuts and bolts and some other things. $155, so that was I'm sorry, $553 for that one. And then I had a third Euro spares order, which was another $155. I will say this, as careful as I was, carefully marking out the things that I had and the things that I still needed with real paper and doing it the old-fashioned way, I still ended up ordering stuff that I didn't need. So I still have a box of Ferrari parts that were redundant, unfortunately. Probably didn't add up to much more than a couple of $100, but it's virtually impossible to get it perfectly right. So yeah, third Euro spares order, $155. Then I bought a relay jumper and a couple more bolts. The relay jumper is what you have to do to replace the, just so that the car will still start up despite not recognizing having a ECU, F1 shift ECU. Without that, the car won't recognize that it has a shift ECU and it won't start. So it's a cheap thing, $50 part, and I think I added a couple of bolts to that. I think that they were the nuts for the top of the on the engine cover shroud. Just an aesthetic thing, really. So $50 there. So anyway, that leaves me with a grand total of $7,574 to do the conversion. So that is actually cheaper than what I would have had to pay for a pump and an actuator for the F1 box. And I had no interest whatsoever in owning a 355 with a flappy paddle gearbox. I've actually never driven one, so I've been told by some people, particularly the ones who own these cars, that, oh, it's great and it's wonderful. I'm just not interested in shifting a car with flappy paddles. The reviewers have all said that it's very recalcitrant. It's not a good system. And it's the first of its kind, so you would expect that, you know. But anyway, I'm 1,000% happy with the results. I still have some work to do, mostly on the aesthetic side, like getting some of the gauges to work. But I've been out in the car drives, and it's, you know, I look forward to many miles in it. But certainly, I'm not done with the project. There's more to do. And I look forward to this year starting to wrench. As soon as it starts to melt out there and it gets warm, I'll be out there working. So we'll see you in those videos coming up. I'm getting the cushion. Forget this noise.